Hello, I'm joined on the Zoom by one of my favourites, and I'm sure she is one of yours too, comedian Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Kiri, hello.
Hello. Do you know what? You've just reminded me of something. I'm already derailing this, but in October, I did a show where I got to go to New Zealand. I think maybe I just chatted to Hannah, the wonderful Hannah Dunleavy, and a woman said to me on a beach in New Zealand, said, "Oh my God, I've just been listening to you on the Standard Issue podcast." And I was like, woo! She's international.
Thank you. We're international. How exciting. I've got to tell the listeners, when I've had a shower and I've washed my hair, I just look like a very sad Smurf with my towel on my head. You look like some sort of glamorous 1930s queen with your turban.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, this is just how disorganized I've been this morning. So, yeah, most of my life is running around with a towel on my head until I'm furiously blow drying it and then out the door. That's my two sort of states, is either blow drying and ruining my hair or have the post-shower turban on.
Is that the secret to your, and I say this is a huge compliment, massive hair?
Do you know what? It's ever-changing, the secret of my massive hair. And when I'm lucky enough to go and do like a teleprogram or something, and there's a makeup artist and they go, okay, what about the hair? And I say, there's only one rule. It can never be too big, only too small. And they're like, okay. And it gets stuck in, and then I still have to go back comb it in my dressing room because I'm like, your idea of big and my idea of big are very different, and that no shade.
So, Kiri, you are literally about to go on a massive tour. How's your tummy feeling?
Oh, quite fizzy. Do you know what? I did a preview last night. I'm in that weird thing that lots of creative people have, I guess, where before you start something, you are so excited about the potential of what it can and will be, but also almost paralyzed into inertia with the fear of what if it doesn't, because you know how good it can be. What if it doesn't hit those heady heights? So there's some bits when I'm on stage and I'm like really in the show and it's all flowing and I'm not worrying about what comes next. And I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever made. And this is exactly the kind of comic I want to be and the kind of things I want to be saying and doing. And then, I'll forget where I am and all the breaks will come on and I've ruined it. This is the worst show. I'm going to embarrass myself. So I'm sort of fluctuating between hubris and deep shame and feeling like I should quit. So really healthy mental state.
That sounds like the perfect comedian balance in life, I think.
Yeah, truly. I think that's all comedians are, is that, which is why it's so dangerous with men. But like a
totally
devastating mix of like arrogance and insecurity.
Yeah, more women, please. We can handle it. Is this your biggest tour to date? I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, by quite a long way, yeah. I think the last one I did was, including Edinburgh, probably just over 60 dates. And this one I'm not doing an Edinburgh. I'm only doing like 3 dates at the Edinburgh Fringe. And it's just shy of 100 dates. So it's a big leap. And most of that is in the autumn. And that only worked out that way because I basically felt, this show is going to be ready sooner than I thought it would and I'll get bored of it. So I went, I wonder if I could kick off the show at the Country Comedy Festival in May. And so that is what's happening. Which now I'm like, I didn't give myself till autumn. But, I'm like lots of people, I work up to the deadline. So it doesn't matter what it would be. It would always be ready last minute.
Totally. Hard relate. How many items of sequin clothing are we talking?
Well, we're talking entire jumpsuits based on a sort of Dolly Parton design.
Yes.
And then a detachable cape inspired by Elvis' sort of Suspicious Minds era. So I've gone, and my shoes are sequin as well. So 3 technically sort of separate items, but I head to toe, like gusset to hairline in sequins, which is always my resting position.
I bloody love a sequin. I am slightly disappointed you're not wearing them now, but you have got fringing and a turban, so I feel
get fringing
treated.
And a turban. And I've got pants on and then no trousers because I'm so behind you getting ready. So I'm Winnie the Poohing this whole interview.
I once interviewed Andy Bell from Erasure and I said the same to him. I was like, Andy, what are you wearing? And he said, I'm wearing a velour tracksuit, which of course he was. And I was like, slightly disappointed you're not wearing a sequin. And he went, oh, darling, those things cut like razor blades. And I was like, it's true.
Yeah. Also, it sounds like a really good, so a sequin cuts like a razor blade is a very, Erasure kind of song.
They're like tiny round tigers. Anyway, your new show, Peacock, is basically about your other identity as Batman, right?
Yes, that is exactly what it is. Finally, I can reveal that I am Bruce Wayne. But no, I have had an alter ego for didn't realise, I thought it was only 18 months, but it is 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so my partner and I have been secretly foster caring. And the reason it was secret is when we were approved, because of me and my job, there were conditions put in place that I couldn't use my real name with the kids, that I couldn't tell them I was a comedian, and that I couldn't talk about it on stage. So I was having all these conversations privately about how transformational it had been. And especially with so many women who are like me, who were in this sort of hinterland where we're not childless and are having all the ordeal of, IVF and things like that, or, being unable to conceive. And then we're not child free and like really sort of like, yeah, we don't want kids. That's not our bag. And so much time and respect for those brilliant women that my life is also full of, that I'm in this sort of like bit in between where I'm like, well, it doesn't feel like either, part is representing me, but I don't want to have children biologically. And then I was having all these conversations privately about how amazing foster caring had been and how it was everything I kind of wanted from being a parent. And yet it felt it was stretching me and challenging me and making me grow in loads of different ways. And the more I do it, the more I think it's absolutely been the right shout for my partner and I as well. Like, in our relationship and the sort of ability, I guess, to provide a nurturing space. And also means I've got more kind of bandwidth to nurture the brilliant single mums in my life who, just are incredible. We've just made it very difficult to be a mum. And like really, in terms of like, not to mention like the cost of childcare and things like that. So I think that this is a way of being a sort of like, on whether it's on the subs bench or whatever, but like you're there and cheerleading the mums in your life and providing support in all the ways that I can, because I don't have my own biological children, but also this amazing opportunity to be supported by a brilliant group of social workers and to have young people in our lives on a regular basis. It feels like we've hacked some kind of cheat code because no one talks about it or champions it. And then we had so many misconceptions going in about what was a foster carer, who were they, what were they allowed to be. And I guess we're proof that you don't have to be any of those things.
I was going to say not all heroes wear capes, but you do actually wear a cape.
I do wear a cape, yeah, nearly always. This hero does.
I think, and you've just sort of touched on it there, the water's a bit muddy around fostering, what is fostering and what is adopting. So it'd be great if you could tell us what it means to foster, to be a foster parent.
Yeah, so when you adopt a child, they are in the eyes of the law and every other kind of institution, it's no different to whether you'd have that child biologically. You have the parental rights, basically, parental responsibility. And fostering, I mean, technically, a young person usually is under a care order, which means that the government has sort of become their parent. And then the government say, and we are going to trust you to then look after that person, whether it be on a short-term or long-term basis. It's sometimes referred to fostering as a professional parent. Yeah. Because it isn't the same as adoption in that when the young people come stay with us, well, for a start, we get paid for it. You don't, if you've adopted a child. We have to have a DBS, we have to have first aid, we have to do at least 15 hours of training every year to make sure we're up to date with things. Yeah, there's all sorts of other sort of things like you're technically eligible for a blue light discount. And, where I live, you get a discount on your council tax. There's like monetary things like that. But also at the end of every day, you need to kind of write a report about what has happened with that young person in their life. And it's called daily recordings. It is a job. It is, and it is like a vocation, and that is what they do. Whereas we do it alongside our other work as well.
What is the training process? Because it's pretty full on, right?
Yeah, and like rightly so, right?
Yes, totally. Yeah, why don't all parents have it before they become parents?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bit in the show, which I've just, as I'm saying it, I remember that I forgot to do last night. But yeah, and so now that's going to just sit with me. But yeah, exactly that is that, and not in a dismissive way, but like we're all better after we have training. And so much of being, especially when, my partner and I are both youngest children, we weren't raised around other children. We've only really got children in our lives in the past couple of years when our friends' kids have come into our lives. So, there was a lot that we didn't know. And if we'd have had children biologically, we would have been like, you can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts, but it's the actual doing, right? So you make that first inquiry. My experience is local authority fostering. They sort of start you training. It starts with kind of an open day where you speak to existing foster carers and they tell you what fostering is. It's called Skills to Foster. So they'll go, this is what it looks like and this is how it manifests to different people. And then you speak to existing foster carers and things. And it weeds a lot of people out immediately of what they, think it is and what it actually is. And then you start your training, and then you are assessed by a very experienced social worker who will assess, it's about 60 hours of interviews.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they go and also interview. I mean, he was so thorough, but in like a gorgeous way. He went and spoke to our siblings, and he spoke to our friends. I mean, they speak to ex-partners. They do all sorts of things. And, you know, they want to see your bank account. They want to know what education level you have. They want to know about your childhood, your religious beliefs, you know, your views on LGBTQ plus people, all that kind of thing. You know, it's great. You are just chatting to someone who's very charismatic and very sort of experienced, but you are being assessed for the whole time, and they do a big report. And at the end of that report, they decide whether you're kind of right or not. And then fortunately, they said that we were. So then you go through to the final stage, which is panel, which is literally a panel of people, about 12 people, who have this report on you, and based on that report, ask you the tough questions. You know, and that might be if you are what we discovered was maybe more typical of fostering parents, which is like maybe an older couple who had now had an empty nest, and maybe, you know, an adult son living at home, but they still had 2 spare bedrooms and things. They would ask you, well, how was your adult son going to feel about having these young people? And you know, is he going to go on the training as well? Because he's a responsible adult. So, you know, asking you those questions. And I thought at first, and it did feel like it, and it's sort of how I presented the show, like very attacked. Sorry to sound like a snowflake millennial, but the questions asked me very tough questions about being a stand-up and my kind of moral character and my suitability, and how I would deal with kids watching me on YouTube and then being bullied as a result of, you know, their school friends seeing my stand-up and things like that. And what they're trying to do is get you to kind of preemptively think about what problems might occur, and then what you would do as a result of it. And so it was a really tough process, and that was the hardest bit, was panel. I honestly wanted to just burst into tears and barely held it together. But fortunately, they were just kind of getting from me. They needed to know that I would know that they were there to support me, because I was just sat there and going, I don't know. I'd ask a social worker, I don't know. But that's what they needed from me, is me to say, when things get tough, I know you guys are the first port of call. So yeah, it was horrible. But at the same time, I now, with hindsight, see that it was the right thing to have done and why they were doing it.
It wasn't a surprise to me to learn that you were fostering, because we've known each other for 10 years now. And back when we first met, you were already thinking that one day you would adopt, and you were sort of talking to people who had adopted. That was something that was very much a Kiri future prospect. I wondered what made this the right time, and why foster?
Yeah, great question. And that's not to say we won't adopt in the future either, or foster long term, which, you know, means that you have that young person for the rest of their time as a looked after person. It's a bit like moving to Wales, and I'm like, oh yeah, and down the line in the future, I'll move back to Wales, you know, at some point, and then never got around to it until a pandemic happened, and then I was like, right, well, I'll just go to Wales because it'll be 2 weeks. That's genuinely what I arrogantly thought, and I'll have 2 weeks in Wales, and then I was like, oh no, this is my life now, and like, so, you know, whatever, fate forces your hand a bit, and this is the same. It was an advert on the radio in lockdown, and we were sat there on this beautiful farm with so much space, spare bedrooms. Really in lockdown, you know, because we were very lucky we weren't on the front line or anything like that, that we were sort of going, gosh, we got this time and this lovely house. And it felt, as soon as we heard that advert, it felt churlish that we wouldn't immediately open it up to people who needed it. And also, I think I kind of semi-cynically thought, okay, well, adoption and fostering is really similar, which I now kind of not, but it certainly is. Children in foster care are likely to go on and be adopted. So I thought, well, we're sort of dipping our toe in that world, at least. You know, you might encounter children who have similar challenges, maybe, or, you know, similar whatever circumstances to who you might end up adopting. And in England, you have a thing that's called foster to adopt, where you foster, you know, if you were being sort of matched with a kid. Wales are introducing it soon. But say, you know, they said, okay, Mickey, you've been matched with this child for adoption. So let's have you fostering them for the next 2 years until it all goes through, and building that bond. And also, you know, you can kind of troubleshoot then. Is anything going to come up that is actually, as opposed to adopting and then potentially hitting problems? They're adjacent to each other. They're same, but different. And it turns out that doing things like a 100-date tour is not that conducive to adopting a child, but it is conducive to being a respite foster carer. I've been doing it. I did it all throughout my last tour. And it means you don't get many days off, but I'm not really in the business of days off anyway, so
No.
it's fine.
There is a real shortage of foster parents in the UK. What would you like to say to anyone even starting to think about it?
If you're like me, maybe you would worry that, like, what if I'm not up to the job? What if I'm not right for it? You won't get, so there'll be so many points where you can clock it and go, this isn't right for me. Social workers checking in on you very regularly about, like, do you still want to do this? Do you want to go on this course? And that is one of the things that I love. One of the fears I had about having children biologically is you kind of have the conversation and then, if all goes, obviously, well, this is from a position of privilege, but like, if all goes well, then you get pregnant and, you have a baby. But like, you kind of have one conversation where you decide and then it can happen. Whereas at this point, every few months, every few weeks, someone's going, and how did you feel about that? And do you like it? And do you feel like you could do that? Or someone's always checking in and kind of holding your hand and going, we all good? Okay, great. Let's keep moving forward. And it's also a bit of a pat on the back, when you get approved and someone asks you all those tough questions and digs into every part of your life and checks every bank statement and all that kind of stuff. And they turn around and go, yeah, you are right for this. And we are, I have been a social worker for 30 years and I can tell you that you're right for this. It's a big vote of confidence and just know that no one's going to give you that job, because it is a job, unless you are more than qualified to do it. So you can take your time with it. You can think it through. If there's any gaps in anything, you can ask for training, which is wonderful. And also, I think people think, I've potentially been quite spoiled with the young people that have come into my life. They've been amazing. And it's been no different to sort of hanging out with my mates' kids. I think people worry about the challenges, behavioural issues, or, trauma. For a start, you are trained in, trauma-informed parenting and things like that. But also, what you are generally just getting is a brilliant kid coming into your house, eating all your food, playing football in the field, and hanging out and watching films at the cinema is my lovely experience of respite care. So don't think that your life is too inflexible because I'm a stand-up comedian all over the shop and we make it work.
And obviously, if they're thinking about it, they should come and see Peacock and find out more about it, right?
Yeah, because actually one of the things I've made sure is that where we can and where they've got back to us, everywhere I'm doing on tour, the local authority fostering team will come along and they're going to set up in the foyer.
Peacock is in venues all around the UK and Ireland until December the 7th. More info and tickets can be yours and should be yours at kiripritchardmclean.co.uk/tours. Kiri, you are always fingering the radio and telly pies. Is there anything coming up we should be looking out for?
Oh, interesting. Well, I've just started a new sort of like series on BBC Radio Wales, which you can get on Sounds, called Kiri's Comedy Club. And the idea is that it's just me wanging on about comedy. And I'm trying to make it really useful as well, especially to the people in Wales. Lots of things, but I just don't know when they're coming out. So I will be haunting all of your media. And I don't mean mediums as in clairvoyance. I mean TV and radio.
The way you dress right now, I could imagine you haunting various mediums.
I'll take it. You know me, I love a side hustle. Oh, can I say one quick thing?
Yeah.
If you are coming along to Peacock, I'm doing a collection for a brilliant grassroots charity called Pens for Kids UK. I always collect something on my tour. So if you've got a spare pen or pencil that's in good working order, chuck it in the boxes at the front. You'll see them on the stage. And they distribute them globally to young people who need pens and pencils to continue their education. They're an amazing organisation.
He doesn't have like 8 biros in the house.
Exactly. Everyone has a spare pen. So bring it along.